Hey, what is going on, everybody? Hopefully, you're having a great Friday. It's Friday, guys, and it's actually sunny outside. It's like 55,
I'm
but
so
tomorrow
glad
it's
it's Friday.
tomorrow it's going to be snowing. So that's the great state of Pennsylvania that we live in. But anyways, guys, we are live. It is another episode of Millennial with Billy and Mel. What is going on? Hopefully, you guys are, like I said, having a good one. And today's a special show. We have a special guest, and we're going to introduce them here in a little bit. But Mel, how are you doing? What is going on? I know there's a lot going on in your life right now. But
Oh my gosh.
Question.
It is the busiest. It's so funny because we get on here and like there's weeks where I feel like it's so busy. There's weeks in a row that we're just so busy, and then there's weeks where it's not. But this is one of them that is, and I feel like I'm gonna be working all weekend probably.
The life of
like
an entrepreneur, right?
And yeah, and a lot of, like we've talked about some of the events that are happening this year and that I'm a part of, and, and volunteer things have to come second to obviously our jobs. So that's stuff that, nights and weekends, and I try to fill in, but it's all exciting. Just have to, get some time management skills. We went from 2 years in a pandemic of not doing much of anything to now
overdrive
overload. It's hard, but yeah. What about you? Happy birthday belated. I mean, we wish you, but yes, you had fun.
Yes, the big 3-5, right? Woo-hoo! I feel like I'm on the downslope to 40, right?
Catch up to me.
But no, it was great. Got to spend some time with some family. Was down at the beach. We went to Bethany and we hung out there, and so it was just good to kind of unplug and not really be like involved in anything business wise. Got to play a round of golf.
Okay.
So that was the first golf outing of the year, and it didn't go so well. But any bad day on the course beats a good day.
You have a whole year to get better.
Yeah, about that. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I'll go out and try give myself the old college try, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was good, and I appreciate everybody that took the time to reach out to me and say happy birthday. And so, but yeah, it was good. It was definitely good. So I hope that you're excited for today's show.
This is a surprise, guys.
Yeah, actually,
really surprises me with guests.
Yes, and now you hadn't had a real opportunity to meet yet, so this will be the first time you get to meet her. But a lot of our viewers too. It's going to be a great opportunity to meet another local business owner. And if you know me and Mel, we've talked about it at length. Always support your local businesses. If you can, especially, maybe shy away from the big box stores and stuff like that. But make sure you always support your local businesses. But I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. She, and I'm not going to try to take a lot of her thunder, but she just recently started her business. So
awesome.
Starting a business after the pandemic, pretty much.
During and after. Crazy.
So, and so we're going to learn a little bit more about her and everything that she does. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my friend, Nell. Nell, how are you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to the conversation about learning a little bit more about you, your business, sharing with everybody, just a little bit more about Nell, right? Yeah. I think that should be, you should start a podcast, a little bit more about Nell. That should be the name of it. I know you already have one, and we could definitely talk about that, but maybe something on your end.
Yeah, it's funny you actually mentioned that because I am coming out with a new podcast.
Look at that.
Yes.
An exclusive on the Millennial. We're announcing it right now.
Yes.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you. It's going to be called What the Nell.
I love
it.
It's kind of like millennial, yelling, what the Nell. I love it.
I love it. So, I mean, we're going to get, let's learn a little bit about you, and then we can obviously talk about that too. I think that's going to be a good question later down the road. So now for a lot of our viewers, they have no idea who you are, right?
Kind of me.
So tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, and
Yeah,
those types of things.
absolutely. So I'm Nell. My company is called enTICEing Media. My husband and I started the company in 2020, right after the pandemic first started. I'm actually from the Baltimore area,
Me
just
too.
outside. Mel, I think you are too, right?
Catonsville. Yep. Baltimore
Catonsville, are you
County.
serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where
Look
I'm
at
Woodbridge,
from.
this.
Woodbridge
Oh, what?
Valley.
Here we go.
This is
I'm
Love
not
it.
even
great.
kidding.
I grew up in I went to Woodbridge Valley Elementary,
Yeah,
went to Sedbrook Middle School, Magnet Middle School,
that's wild.
and I would have gone to Catonsville. Technically, my home school was Woodlawn, which we call
Yeah.
Hoodlawn, but I went to Susquehanna, which
Okay.
same.
Okay.
It's kind of similar to this similar setting. But my sister had gone to Catonsville High School for 2 years, and then we moved up to Susquehanna. So very, very much with my my Baltimore and county roots.
Yeah, that's really funny. I went
That's
to
awesome.
Catonsville High School. I went to Catonsville Middle School too, but I grew up, my early years in Baltimore were in Edmondson Heights.
Okay, yeah,
So that's
yeah,
where I went
very
to elementary
close.
school.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, what year did you graduate high school? This is great.
2002.
Okay, dude, we know. So we're gonna know the same people because I
Oh my
graduated in
gosh.
I
2003.
love this.
Oh, this is crazy.
I graduated in 2003, and it's so funny because most of what Sudbrook would have gone to Catonsville, and I knew
Yeah,
a lot of the people there. We're gonna have to connect. That's so
absolutely.
funny.
This is awesome.
Look at this. We're making connections here on the Millennial. I love it.
Yeah.
Who would have thought you guys would have been like?
I'm
From
gonna
the
start
same
sending
area.
some names through the chat.
I know, that's wild. This
That's
small
great.
world.
Yeah. So what other surprises do you have?
Day by day.
So early on in my childhood, I decided I wanted to be a meteorologist. So I wanted to be on the Weather Channel. I went to Millersville University, did study meteorology for a semester and a half, or just one semester, I don't remember. But I grew up wanting to be on TV and in media. When I was a kid, my friends and I started a magazine,
Cool.
what you do when you're a kid. It was called the Kids Only Magazine. So
I love that.
so, I was always just trying to get in front of a camera somehow. And I was just always into that. So that's me. My friends currently, my nickname is the gluten-free tree-hugging hippie. Because
I know
oh, good, we
is
can
this
swear.
with pride?
So I'm always just like cooking random obscure things. There's always something funky in the refrigerator. It's usually organic, so that's why they call me that. And I did do gluten-free for a little while.
Yeah.
But
See, being
I
Italian,
bet you feel better though.
hard for me to do gluten-free
I know.
pasta.
Oh, yeah.
There's
it's not the
something
same.
It's definitely not the same, especially like recooking it in the like in the next day. It's always just terrible.
I can tell you, my stomach would be a lot happier with me if I went less gluten. I can tell you that.
Oh, it's
and
really
then
would be.
beer. I can't give up beer.
I know you have to.
Well, you can get O'Doul's at the grocery store.
No, it's not the same.
It's
Drinking
drinking non-alcoholic beer.
like,
Yes,
just to
that
to
or
drink.
Heineken Zero, right?
This sounds terrible.
We don't, but yeah, so and it's crazy because also Mel, she has a connection with you in Baltimore, and then you go down to the same beaches that I go down to, the
Yeah.
Bethany area. So it was a lot of different connections here on the Millennial. So, but so let me ask you this: you are a millennial, right?
I am. I'm a true
you're like
millennial.
right on the cusp too. I think it's
Yeah.
like 1981. Were you born in 1984?
84, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the wonderful world of social media. I can stalk you and find out what your birthday
Please
is.
do. It's an open book.
So a millennial in business. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about like what you did before you started your business.
So I was the chief operations officer of a coffee and tea company here in Lebanon.
Oh.
And I did that for 13 years. And
Wow.
it should have been so much fun, honestly. I mean, coffee, tea, endless
Yeah.
every day. and just tasting new flavors. And
That would be really cool.
Oh my gosh, that part of it was
Maybe a little
amazing.
bit.
But it was so incredibly stressful. I had a couple of experiences there that I would not wish to ever have again, which I actually wrote a book partially about that you'll find out in the book if you read it.
I love this.
So yeah, it should have been a fantastic job and I should have loved it, and I just didn't. And I knew my heart wasn't in it, and I just had to get out of it.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people start their businesses that way, right?
Yeah.
I think there are some of us that start a business that maybe like our parents owned or something along those lines, and we just get into that business. But I feel like, especially, get both of your opinion on this. Like, especially, I think the pandemic changed a lot of people's mindset of like, hey, am I going to work here for the next however long, right? Like, and I think a lot of people are saying to themselves, well, hey, if I'm going to start a business, like this is the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how we kind of got into the business. It really was the pandemic. My husband and I love to travel, and everybody around us was always like, where are you guys going next? What are you doing? And so we had followed a couple of travel vloggers on YouTube, and we started our own YouTube channel, Kenny and Nell. Go give us a follow, subscribe. So I wanted to film with something other than my iPhone. And when the pandemic started, I was like, this is the perfect time to buy a camera. When in 2 weeks, when all of this is over,
yeah, remember that?
I'll know how to use it. I'll have a great camera. I'll edit all the footage, and we'll have this thriving YouTube channel. Well, there we were. And that was April of 2020.
Yeah. 2 weeks turned into like 2.5 years, right?
Yeah.
Really quickly. So, but that's awesome. I think, that's similar to my story, of just, and that's how really this podcast started. Mel was already doing this, right? She was doing Millennial by herself, and we met through the pandemic, through the Central PA supports local small businesses.
Yeah.
And she literally, I remember asking me, say, hey, do you want to just do this full time with me? And I was like, heck yeah. So, never thought I would be on a podcast, right? I always wanted to be a guest on a podcast, but now I get to host one. So it's even better. So I get to be on every week, right? Live every Friday.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think it helped too, because Billy was doing some videos for his business on his pages and then sharing to that the Central PA Supports Small Business. And I think doing this together has really helped both of us with our communication skills and public speaking, even though we're not speaking directly in front of people physically and visually. But obviously we know that people do listen live and they're commenting and they're engaged. And, we can see that there's people right now, obviously, watching. Thanks guys for being on, and obviously on social media, but I think it's given like us confidence too, and him, he's been able to do, I feel like you just do more for your business outside of this,
sure.
Because it's kind of more in a habit and an outlet, and so it's cool because you've gotten a lot more with it. You just kind of go up, do a couple topics, and throughout the week, it's really great to have that video on your social media, I think.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And that's why this podcast title is The Power of Video, right? And so let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about, your business. Tell us what you do and maybe some places that you're wanting to go, like with this business, because I know you're just relatively new, right? You're starting out.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we technically registered the LLC in 2020, but I did go full time until January 1 of this year. And
nice.
I focus on video editing and digital media strategy. So if you're looking for social media content, doing a video to promote your business, customer testimonials, I do some product photography as well. I just did a shoot actually for a local restaurant in Liverpool this week, and they needed some photos for an award that they are hopefully going to win for Harrisburg Magazine. So I do those types of things. I've always been a huge supporter of small businesses. I think that small business is the backbone of this country. And anything that I can do to help tell the story of the owner, the story of the business, and the background, that's what I really focus on and love to do. I think it's really important to work with small businesses in that capacity to move them to the forefront.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I totally believe in the power of video over. I mean, pictures are great. I love pictures, but for me in the business that I am in, and I'm actually going to be working with Nell here in the next
Yeah.
not this weekend, the following weekend, correct?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we're gonna be doing like an intro video about me and my business and stuff like that. And the reason, like, I have gotten so much more business from doing live video and just doing video in general, like, because I feel like, and now you can probably speak more to this. I feel like people really get to know you, right? They really get
Absolutely.
to hear you, hear how you talk, hear all these
Mhm.
things. And I have countless examples where I've been at a networking event and someone's like, "Hey, I know you." And I'm like, "I've never met you ever. Like, I don't even know you." I'm like, "No, I see all your stuff, all the stuff you post, all the videos you post,
Yep.
and I just love your stuff." And so I think that's the power of video.
Oh, yeah. And, the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. That's true to an extent, but I think video is worth so many more words. And in photos, you can't capture the mannerisms, how people use their hands to speak, and the voice. And there's just so much more emotion behind video.
Hmm. Hmm.
Definitely. I mean, what's funny is I had an intern for a little bit, and we started doing some videos with YouTube. He was getting up, and I would hop on and just talk about the invitations, some design work that I had. I had some stuff sitting on my desk. I just, 1 minute videos, 30-second videos, 15 seconds, and like the shorts that are now coming out with like reels and all that. And it's actually funny because the first time we did it here in my office, he just was like, "Wow, you really good at this." And it's so like one take, or, I just rallied them off. And he was like, "How did you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm just so used to being behind now, doing the camera and recording and talking and expressing and thinking about it ahead of time because of the podcast." So I think that there are absolutely benefits to doing video in, whether it's the podcast helps me to do the business stuff, or the business stuff helps with the, I don't know, but it really, I mean, he was just shocked. Like, we didn't need any editing or no takes. And I'm like, well, no, the best thing is to do no editing or takes technically. But yeah, I mean, I just think I really love doing those little things. I think people love watching the videos.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the most important things to remember about video, I mean, I think YouTube says you lose the viewer's attention after like 15 seconds or something. So you really have to really move forward with the concept of the video in those first 15 seconds. You need to capture the attention, grab the audience in. And I think that video is it's so much more interactive, and it's just, I mean, editing is important to an extent if you're really trying to sell a story where cinematics are included, color grading for visual purposes. And I mean, there's just so many ways to make it purposeful. So yeah.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, when we were just discussing about what we were going to do together, right? And I'll show you some of the ideas that I want. It's like, I know for me, like, it's always like the underlying music too, like, or whatever, it's like, it really just, not only what the words you're saying, but like you said, like just everything encompassing. And, it's great that we can all just get on our phones and record a video, but like when you want to do something professional, I think it's, it really can lead your business into a different direction. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of my favorite parts of editing is sound design. Music and just little enhancements here and there really make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. So what was the moment that you decided like, hey, we're going to do this full time? What was that like? Because I know what it was like for me. Mel definitely probably
Yep.
remembers what that moment was. A very defining
Oh,
moment. I feel
I
like
do. Yep.
maybe you don't think about it in the moment, like, hey, this is where everything changes. But now looking back on it and after the decisions that you made, like, do you remember that moment?
Oh, I will never forget that moment. I walked into my job one day with absolutely no intention of saying a word, no intention of actually even putting this out there. Of course, I'd been talking about it, to my husband and like my inner circle, but I went into work one day and I had a meeting, and at the end of that meeting, something in my head said, "Do it, do it now." And I sat my boss down and I said, "I'm leaving at the end of the year." And she said,
That's
"Thank
awesome.
you for the notice." Now, this was March 3rd of last year. So I gave like 10 months notice. And,
Yeah.
lots of time in there to, things happen and sometimes things change. But when you start telling people about your plans, you're holding yourself accountable, because what a look, if you just tell everyone that you're doing something and then you don't.
Oh yeah, I've done it.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
I kept, going through. A lot of stuff happened last year. And I said, you got to do it. Stick to your word. So December 9th, I had a very tearful conversation with Kyle Slaymaker of the Slaymaker Method. And he said, "Are you coming on? Are you going to do it? Finally, like, I've been coming after you for a year. Let's just do it." And I said, "All right, sign me up." So December 9th, I made the actual decision, handed in my letter of resignation at work. And December 31st, I said, "Peace."
There it is. I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That is such an amazing story, and I hope somebody's watching this today that's thinking about starting their business, right? And
Yeah.
just feel themselves, oh, am I ready? It's like you're never gonna be fully ready.
No, it's like they say when you're thinking about
With
having kids.
children. Yep.
Yeah, and look, I don't have
Yep.
kids, so I can't say for sure, but I feel like
Yeah,
people are always like, "Oh, we're going to wait until the finances are good," or you're just going to always be waiting for the right time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know. I was actually just talking about that with a couple of my friends, and yeah, that's really a cool story too, because especially during the time, during the time that you went through it, in the last couple of years too. But I think that it shows that there's so many different times in our lives that are reasons for us to want to change, and that there's different, adapting and getting out of situations and opportunities. So yeah, that's neat. Yeah.
yeah,
It's obviously incredibly scary, but there are certainly aspects that I would not trade whatsoever. No regrets.
yeah. No, I'm the same way. Like I look back on it, and like it. I mean, I was thinking about it last week, right? I took off. My wife had off for from her work for a week, and like if I was still working in hospitality, there would been no way I would have been able to take off a whole entire week.
Oh,
Like, right? Like,
hospitality? No way.
yeah, like no, it's not going to happen, right? And so, like being able to have that freedom and have that, obviously that freedom is a double-edged sword, because if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then you're going to be going back to work for somebody else really quick.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. So we talked about the services that you offer. What is your favorite aspect of what you do? Like the thing that you're just like, hey, I love everything I do. I love everything about my business, but there's that one thing that I love doing the most.
Honestly, I love watching footage back. And I did just this week, I did a video shoot for an organization where a service dog was provided to one of their clients. And I was there to film the moment that the dog met with the client. And
Oh, wow.
watching that footage back, you can't watch it without getting emotional. And I love that. I love the humanity side of the job. I love connecting with people. I'll tell you, the first like good month and a half of doing this, I was kind of in a really dark place at some moments because I wasn't seeing people. You know, you lose touch with other people in the outside world. And I'm a very social person.
Yeah.
And I love connecting. I love being a virtual storyteller. Connecting with human emotions is just on another level. That's my favorite part.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Like it like being able to connect with other people. I love that. You know, that's something that really gets me going, right? Because it's, for the business is a business, right? And like you said, there are going to be those moments of darkness, right? Where you're like, am I doing the right thing? Right?
Oh my gosh.
Did I make the right decision? But then
100,000 times. Yes.
Yeah. But for every moment that you have of that, there's 10 moments where it's like, man, this is the most amazing thing ever. Right.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So, let's talk about this. So obviously now what you're full time, a couple months at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a couple people watching now. Maybe somebody's, like I said, is watching this and thinking to themselves, like, maybe I can do it, right? What are some key takeaways that you can give somebody, some advice? Maybe they're looking to start their own business. Maybe they're thinking about, doing something better for their business or whatever. Just what's your one piece of advice for them?
Well, first of all, there is no maybe. You absolutely can do this. My piece of advice would be, don't give up. Don't let anyone stand in your way. Don't get into your own head. I can't even tell you how many times I sat here and cried, just sobbing every single day. And also have a support system and make sure it's tight. And if I didn't have that support system, I don't know where I would be. I may have given up, but you just do not give up. It doesn't matter what it takes. Just don't. Just keep going.
Love it. Yeah. I love that.
I also think it's funny because there's certain times where I didn't have much of a plan. I kind of just did things, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So I think that when we go back to the idea of saying, oh, it's not the right time, or I'm going to wait till this, that having that type of plan, like we said, it's sometimes you just need to do it, right?
Yeah.
You just need to go and do it. Not having, so much of that type of plan, but still having a plan in that, like direction, I guess is what I'm saying,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
sometimes I'm just like all over the place, and it's like, how do I get anything done if I don't have a plan? But
I am totally there with you. I am all over the place. If you just ask Kyle's like, why are you so weird? Like, can't we just talk about one thing at a time?
Oh no, trust me. You'll get to know once we connect, which we are, because we're going to talk about our Baltimore days.
Totally.
You'll find out where I'm over here, squirrel, red, silver, shiny. So
yeah, that's why Mel can't have any control over the show, like all the buttons in the back office. We tried one time. So, but everybody has their strengths, everybody has their weaknesses, right? Like, and so, but that something that you mentioned that's, really important, I think people need to understand, is that having that support system, of just having people, and it doesn't have to be a spouse, it doesn't have, but having people that you can connect with, and that going back to connection and having those types of things. But I'm the same way. Like, I'm very independent. I can do things on my own. I don't need a lot of motivation, but there are going to be those days where you're just second guessing everything. You're doubting yourself, and you need that person to just be like, hey, you got this. Right?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And it's funny because I was just talking about this with a couple of my friends who, have their own businesses, work for, like how Billy has his own business inside of another, organization, or kind of, But we all have our own business, even if it's not your own business, but you feel that you have the responsibility of so much that's equal to like having your own business, right? But
Oh, for sure.
that we just have, like a lot of us have just felt so overwhelmed that it's just having, like being able to talk to people about it that are relative, that you can almost vent to in a sense, but that have that, like that support system. I agree, absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's 100% like the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, I haven't done it this week, Mel. I just want to point this out. I've my mic a bunch of times and I haven't, because I'll do that. I'll mute my mic and be able to hear what I'm
I know,
saying.
and I'm like, tap, tap, tap.
Tap, tap, tap. So I'm getting better about using
Yes.
new equipment, right? So
It's all it's all good things when we're advancing and we're getting new equipment and we're getting things that
we should just replay the very first show we ever did together, because it's complete night and day.
I don't even want to. I'm like kind of embarrassed.
Oh, I'm going back to watch it for sure.
Oh
Yes.
my God.
Well, like when you have like conversations with people, and especially because before I have my last question, I want to ask, about your new podcast, right? But when when you're interviewing, talking with somebody, and it seems like it's just choppy, right? Like it's like, oh, I have to end so that person can start. Like now, like Mel will cut me off in the middle of a sentence, and I'll cut Mel off in the middle of a sentence, or it's just more conversational than it was when we first started. Not to say the conversation wasn't good; it was just it's a lot better now, right?
Yeah, and that happens with anything. You just get better as you keep doing it, and I think that one of the biggest misconceptions with people starting their own business is thinking they're not good enough to do it, and that you have to have a degree or something.
Mhm.
And these days, especially, I mean, the more you do something, the more passion you put behind it, the more successful you're going to be at it.
Yeah, definitely. So
Absolutely.
real quick, tell us about before I get my last question, tell us about the new podcast that you have coming out.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm so excited. So it's going to be called What the Nell. So we're going to talk about, I will have guests. So hopefully you two will, this is your official invitation.
There we go. The millennial is going on the road.
Yes.
Yeah, millennial, Billy and Mel and Nell.
The millennial Nell. So it's going to be about, mostly I want to focus on entrepreneurism, business, but also life, of course, because they intertwine. But at the end of each episode, I want the guest to tell us a story that leaves everybody thinking, what the hell? Like, what?
I love it.
Something that just leaves you with like, I can't believe that happened.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because, you got to keep it lighthearted and fun. And business can be so serious at times. Obviously, it has to be. But we can also have fun in business, too. And that's another thing to remember.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love that.
It is.
So my last question, and Mel didn't even know I was going to ask this question, but it's going to be a great segue to next week's episode, right? You got to tie the audience in.
Of course.
You got to come back next week to see what next week's show is about.
I know how this works.
And me and Mel are going to be talking about next week the things that we grew up with, like in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, right? Because life was really different back then for all those, Gen Zers, right? And Generation Alpha, right? That's the newest generation, by the way.
There's multiple generations behind us. Gosh, we're old.
Yeah, we do a lot of research on this show.
They may be babies, but they're
unfortunately, our fact checker Brandon hasn't made it on the show. So as growing up as a millennial, right? Growing up in the 80s and 90s, what were some of your favorite things you did as a kid? What were some of the styles where that you had that were all like, you look at kids these days, they're like models. And then I look at when I was like 9, I was like, I had a bowl cut, right? Like, so what were some of those things growing up that you remember?
Trying to picture that bowl cut.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, growing up in the 90s. So I don't remember much of the late 80s, but I definitely remember going through so many style phases in the 90s. I went from everything from, I guess they call it emo, like emo goth, to like the next year I was wearing Old Navy shift dresses because I was in the band and I was just trying to like, and my prom dress my senior year looked exactly like Cinderella. I mean, it was just all over the board. I was always into hair, like trying the newest hair trends. Do you remember those like I don't remember what they were called. They looked like little Z's that you like wove your hair into. You went to bed and you
Yep.
woke up with like crimpy hair.
Mm-hmm.
I had a horrible experience one time with those. I did it overnight. My hair was like huge. We went to Old Country Buffet the next day, and like somebody walking by with a plate and barbecue sauce like wiped it.
Oh my God. I did that. I would braid mine in little tiny braids, and then poof, it was like this wide.
Huge hair, but so stupid stuff like that. I mean, I was always into Barbies, and it's wild how different today is without. Yeah, I mean, with the phones, like I got together with my friends, we would be outside till dark, and your parents are like, "Hello, you coming in for dinner?"
That's what we said. We talked about it on the last podcast that I couldn't imagine right now with the mothers, that they were, I mean, in their my mom was probably, early 30s or screaming mid 30s down the street for our our names, like just like, could you imagine like that happening right now?
No, now you just
call
text
the
your
cops.
kids.
You just text.
I think that somebody would be it was like getting murdered, like
no,
but it happened.
We just lived for those summer days when you were just outside from wake up to sundown. I mean, now we played video games. I had like Nintendo 64
and Sega Genesis.
Yeah, and my favorite Nintendo 64 game was Wave Race. I couldn't.
That was a good game.
I didn't have Nintendo 64, and this is gonna totally like this next week. I'm already excited about next week's podcast, but we would go to my neighbors to play Nintendo 64, and then they would come to my house to play Sega. And
it was always like a neighborhood thing. Like I remember, like we'd play Sega or Nintendo 64, and all the kids from the neighborhood would go over to one house, and you would watch one kid. I mean, now they do that now on just social media. They're just watching one kid play, but like it would be like a whole evening, right? Like you'd be hanging out at one person's house. It'd be pizza, right? Soda. You'd be playing video games all night, right? Sleepovers.
I was just gonna say sleepovers, and
times were different.
Times are so different.
They were, and I just think that it also it's also some type of a reflection on somewhat the character and like the people that we are. I think a little bit, and I don't want to discount anybody per se, but I just think that because of that technology and that the major changes in how things were from like parenting down, that I think that I've seen a lot of differences between the people that are younger than us, especially that are teens now, that just don't have the the discipline and the respect. And I think that it's just different times that we did.
No, I totally agree. I mean, just going back to the whole thing about connecting with people and talking to people in person, and kids these days, you're encouraged not to do that, especially during the pandemic when you're supposed to stay apart and do everything virtually. We grew up in a time where we talked to people. We went to people's houses and did these things. We didn't play Call of Duty online and through social media and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
and I mean, in person.
It's true, and it's funny because I usually get to do my Mel's moment, but it's going to be Nell's moment because you're a guest. So we'll just have to
rebranding on the fly. I love it.
We didn't have like a graphic that we could stamp an N over the M for Mel's moment, Mel. But what I will say, and then we can segue into that, is that speaking of like the digital world, and obviously bringing in what you do and a lot of the things that we talked about with technology and being in this digital world, and the kids, and just a great topic that happened actually with me here in Hershey. There was a car meetup in the downtown Hershey area that right in the parking garage, and it apparently so I'm told was supposed to had started out, just quiet and people looking at cars and taking photos and whatnot. And hey, that's cool. They do that everywhere. And it's, come meet out and just hang out.
Yeah.
And it turned into this thing called a takeover style. And it was 4 hours of burnouts and squealing tires. And there's, markings on the pavement there. And it was just the thought of the appropriate place and time for that. And that the teenagers, I mean, they're teenagers, okay, that were there mostly, and maybe some early 20-year-olds, but we're talking 15 years younger than us at that point, in early 20s now.
Yes.
And then 20 to, and maybe even 20 years younger than us. And it's kind of sad to think about that and depressing, but at the same time, what is appropriate and what's not, and the difference in the decision-making, when we were kids, we knew what was right and wrong. And I think that while we made some bad decisions as teenagers, as a collective whole community and culture, it wasn't the same. It's not the same as what's going on. And when I posted something on a group here, and I got not only harassed and attacked in the page, which 90% of the people were in agreement that this is not the right, this is dangerous and through town and speeding. And obviously, people at some point in your life, you're going to realize like, no, that was not, it's against the law and it's dangerous in a pedestrian zone. But here, just the noise and that it was so disruptive to so many people and families in a residential area, but it just didn't see it. You could tell in their reactions and all that said, I got literally messages for 2 to 3 days with harassing, kill yourself, go overdose, Karen. I'm like, Karen is so 2020, and I was giving them these things, but the like, I don't want to say anger, like the violence, like it just was actually kind of scary that they were the bullying. And I mean, it's a whole topic for another day, but it's just going back to, it's that they can sit there and sit behind a computer and technology and the bullying and just what is going on in the because of just the all of that just is it's so sad to see what they're, how they think that it's appropriate, and they rally this social media mafia to attack me. And it's like, I can take it. You're not going to, I'm a 37-year-old, confident woman, but some people wouldn't. And it's scary that they're doing it to other children. And it was just really baffling to me that the hateful and hurtful and incredibly disrespectful things that it was dozens and dozens and dozens of these teenage kids. And it's just, and again, it's that community and that culture, but at the same time, all relative to, I don't see that we were never raised to do,
No, I honestly, and this is, without having kids, I feel like sometimes I hold back on speaking about these things because of being judged by other parents that would just immediately say, well, you don't have kids, so you have no idea. But this is a huge, huge issue because I feel like in today's society, because of the presence of social media and the fact that there's a platform for everyone's voice, that it's just strictly a competition of who can say the worst thing, who can influence the most. It's about getting noticed. And that's what kids live for these days. Get on social media, get yourself out there, go viral for something, because everybody's trying to get famous. Everybody's trying to make money. And so that's the whole society, I feel like, has gone to with the bullying.
It is. But you know what's funny? I actually was going to post about it, and I was thinking about it and I actually was going to say that this kind of went viral, but it was that because they were messaging this like, I called it a social media mafia, but whatever. I mean, people in Philadelphia, New York, Indianapolis. I mean, these teenage kids that are in these groups that weren't even here, that have no firsthand experience, weren't there, have no idea what even happened in the sound and the disruption. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then what's funny is that, it's like I went viral with teenage tuner car, these like, jerk kids. I became this, they went and put me all out there. So we're sharing your post. We're this. I'm like, great, go ahead.
Do it. Yeah.
Go ahead, make it famous.
Free advertisement.
It is. And the whole thing is that all of the, mature adults on the page were like, you can see in just their reaction and what they're saying and what they're, so it didn't bother, I mean, it really didn't bother any of us. And it was, it was fine. But at the same point, it's really scary to see and I want to use the word violence, but I don't know what's appropriate.
Form of violence,
to how that whole thing, the reaction to it, because they didn't like being called out. They didn't like being told, that we didn't like what they were doing. It's like, okay. So I said, these even girls, like teenage girls, I literally wrote back. I said, listen, I've been shutting down bullies and mean girls 20 years ago when I was in high school. And that's why the same girls are where they are today, doing the same shit. And I'm doing what I'm doing. So good luck. Continue doing that. And it's sad but it goes back to, I do think, the different parent, all of that comes into factor. But absolutely. I'm glad that we I feel like we're going to have a great podcast next week talking about the things that we did.
Well, you brought up a great millennial movie. I mean, Mean Girls. That was a great millennial movie, right?
One of the greats of all time.
Yeah. One of the things I remember about just speaking about, movies. I mean, if you didn't like American Pie and you're a millennial, I don't know if we can be friends. At this point, right?
Who didn't watch that? I want to know, is there anybody out there that didn't even see it?
Yeah.
My parents, speaking of that, my sister and I rented it in high school and we watched it like Friday night.
Oh, did you rent it from Blockbuster? Or
probably, yeah.
Video?
Probably,
video?
Redbox, whatever it was called. And then, so we watched it and then, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, we were up late. And then, no lie, we went to sleep. We woke up at like 10, 11, slept in on Saturday. And we come downstairs and my parents are dying laughing. They're watching it.
Yeah.
Like the next morning. And I was like, no, you can't
see this.
No, please be kind. Was it Please Be Kind and Rewind? Remember that?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we're gonna have a field day next week. Everybody, I hope everybody that's that's gonna watch.
I'll be
now
watching for sure.
Tune in.
Well, I think it's a good way to end the show, right? And let's do this, right? Now, right? I have Mel and Nell, right? So it's like trying to keep both letters separate in my mind, right? But at the end of every show, what we do is we pop up the millennial meme of the week, right?
Love it.
And so the reason we do that, especially for Nell and for maybe somebody that's watching for the very first time, we're driving in the car, me and my wife. She, everybody posts memes, right? And so she was showing me a meme, and my little niece, my little Gen Zer,
or Alpha,
niece, or whatever at this point. She goes, oh, memes are so millennial, and I said, you're damn right they are. But every week, so we have a segment of the show where we dedicate to a meme, and Mel actually picked this one out. It was my turn, but she picked it out, and it looks like it's something with digital marketing.
We kind of talked about this, which is funny.
Oh, yes. This is amazing.
What my friends think I do. So there's a bunch of girls standing around. It looks like,
is
that Mark Zuckerberg? What my parents think I do, right? You're some guy reading a book.
So true.
What clients think I do versus what society thinks I do.
Laying on a beach.
Where do I get that job where I can lay on the beach
in
a full business suit on a computer?
half in the water, half out.
Yes. Sign me up. What I think I do, so it looks like it's some Google people, and then what I actually do. Guy
driving ourselves crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty appropriate.
Oh, that's so appropriate. And it's funny because I was just a friend of mine is a contractor, and he was working on a house next door to us. And yesterday I saw him. I was leaving my house for something. I rolled the window down. He said, "Are you done watching your soap operas yet?" I was like, "Bye."
Yeah, soap operas. Do people still watch those? I don't even
Probably
know.
online somewhere.
They're
Probably.
on when I get I'm at the nail salon. They have them on, but that's about it.
Yeah. I don't even know.
I have
But
enough drama. I don't need any
Right.
to watch.
But there's another part of the show, right? And like I said, where usually Mel gets a little bit more segue to tell us a little bit more about what maybe give us some advice leading us into the weekend, maybe something funny to think about, right? To take people's mind off the stressful week that they had. But whenever we have a special guest, it is actually their moment, and so it's actually going to be a Nell's moment.
Nell's moment. I love it.
Nell's moment.
So, and we keep talking about this. We need to have some type of jingle here.
Maybe you could help us, Nell.
Oh, yeah.
Some
we
of
need
us can help each other with some of our.
Yes, we need like a little
things.
jingle or something like that.
Yeah,
that will just
it.
be, people will
Encourage
think
each
about.
other.
Hey, well, it's a Nell's moment.
We'll
So,
be
anyways, Nell, it is your moment. Take it away. Piece of advice, whatever you want to say. The floor is ultimately yours.
Okay. All right. Going to this weekend, especially with tomorrow, there's a snowstorm coming, you
Ugh.
guys. I know we want it to be spring. However, the weekend is always a time, and I'm going to steal this idea from somebody else that I saw this one. I think it was Kyle, actually. The weekend is the time to kind of sit back and relax for everybody. It's Friday. It's like, well, let's get crazy. But be intentional with the way that you're spending your time. Make sure that it's working for you. If you're resting, make sure you're practicing self-care. Just do something to help you be a better person this weekend.
Love it.
I love it.
Yeah, perfectly said. If you don't follow Nell, follow her. She posts a lot of motivational stuff too. So I always try, like, if you look at my news feed, there's anytime somebody says something negative or crazy, I hit it. Like, if I'm still going to be friends with them, I'm going to hit the snooze button on them, give them 30 days to work that out of their system, and then they can come back. But if they're not going to be friends anymore, just unfriend them, right? Yeah. But yeah, perfectly said. And like I said, we appreciate you coming on today, hanging out with us on the Millennial, yelling about all kinds of stuff, because that's what we do here. We like to yell about things.
Let's shout it out. Shout it out.
So, but anyways, before we jump off, before we end the show, tell everybody how they can find you. Where's the best place to get a hold of you if they want your services or they just want to connect?
Yeah, and I tagged you as well on our story. So hopefully, if you guys are on the stories, you can check it out.
Absolutely. So the name of the business is called enTICEing Media. Tice in enTICEing is spelled like my last name, TICE. enTICEing Media at gmail.com. gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, Nell Tice. I do have a Facebook group. If you are a content creator or thinking about being a business owner, it's called enTICEing Enthusiasts. I'm also on Instagram. My handle is Shiny Happy Hippie. Hippie
Love
is
it.
IE. And I also will have the podcast coming out called What the Nell that should be available on every platform for podcasts. And I do have a book coming out. It's called Curvature of the Career. So hoping to release that maybe tonight, maybe this weekend. That sounds like a good snow day activity.
It does.
Like happening right now.
It's all happening. So
like I said, that's awesome. That's awesome. No, and where could they get that book if it does release in the next, however time frame?
So the book will be available on Amazon in Kindle form and in paperback. There will be a short period of time where the book will be available for free. So make sure you're following me on social media to get that updated information to get the book for free. After that, it will be, of course, monetized. So, but yeah, look out for that. There's some good information and a little bit more in-depth background about how I got to where I am now.
Awesome.
Great. This was awesome.
I love it.
I had so much fun. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was such a great time.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. Like I said, we look forward to seeing all your stuff pop up, but and with the podcast, the book, we're going to definitely be big supporters of that. And anything we could do for you, we're going to definitely do. And so,
thank you.
I
was
going to say too, I wonder if we should hop on like instead of messaging about, oh, do you know this person, or like talking about this stuff, if we should just do a podcast and say like,
we
oh my God, I
should.
used to play soccer for Enrico, and you're gonna be like, oh my God, you know, and then like, so
Yes.
maybe we should just do it live, because, and then I can send it, my mom could watch it, and then like all of my friends in Baltimore, you know, because
Yeah.
it's really funny. I'm telling you, we have to know.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I
mean,
want to film it. It would be great.
yeah, we should totally film it. I kind of hopped off because I started doing the business stuff for a while, but I was on the planning committee for our 20-year reunion is this year, which is mind blowing.
Yeah.
But I was talking to a bunch of people that I graduated with, and you know, they all had siblings. My sister went to Catonsville High School too, so we have to know somebody.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean,
if you don't, it would be the weirdest thing in the world. If you're like, oh, we don't know anybody, right? Like, that would be so awkward. That would be the most awkward podcast ever.
Oh, we know nobody. All right, thanks for your time.
And that's it for today's show. But anyways, like I said, we appreciate you for jumping on. For everybody that jumped on, that liked this, that commented on this, guys, this is going to be up for replay. You can watch this on our page, The Millennial. Make sure you check us out every Friday, 2:00. And like I said, next week's going to be really fun because we're going to be talking about all the stuff that we used to do as kids. I don't really remember the 80s. I was 87. So it's going to be more the 90s, the early 2000s and stuff like that. Music was so much better back then.
I mean, hell yeah.
We could just go on and on. Maybe I can entice Nell to post her favorite things that maybe a little bit more, maybe favorite food, favorite music, favorite, maybe we can get her to post it on there, and I can read her list on the air.
Love it.
Without a doubt. I'm in.
So, but anyways, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend, because it is technically the weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day. Get outside before the snow gets here if you're in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
that's all I can say for you today. It's gonna
get
worse
outside.
So anyways, guys, have a good one. We will talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.